Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. Uncanny X-Men number 161. We've got, I think this is General Van Strucker. I did not read this pre starting this. So I'm gonna be reading it with you. So haven't read this comic book in for freaking ever. I do own this issue. In fact, from now on, I actually own all the issues. Most of the time, I had just the classic X Men, but now I actually have every single issue. Um, so Dave Cockrum and Bob Wycheck are doing the cover here with Magneto and Professor Xavier, and you can see here Professor X is walking. This is the cover to the classic X-Men issue. This is how I encountered this story. So Mike Mignola and P. Craig Russell are the cover artists. So Gold Rush. So we've got Xavier dreaming of the Brood. Now this here is not screen tones, but they're using duotones slash zipitones here on the background to give you these effect. If you want to know what duotones and zipitones are, there are some channels, including Cartoonist Kayfabe. Just type duotone or zipitones, and they'll show you how that worked. But all this here, and of course, we're now after two seemingly one and done issues, we're finally continuing the story here. We got Professor Xavier in his catatonic phase here, dreaming or thinking of the Brood. We've got Nightcrawler, Moira McTaggart, Lalandra, Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm. So, Chris Claremont is the writer. Dave Cockrum and Bob Wycheck return to do the art. Tom Orzechowski doing the letters, and Glynis Wine as the colorist. So our normal team, Louise Jones and Jim Shooter editing. So, all right, Nightcrawler says, "My friends, is there nothing we can do?" And Wolverine says, "If there was, Elf, don't you think we'd be doing it?" And Moira says, "There's no change, Sikorsky." And Sikorsky, of course, is of the Starjammers, and he says, "Is to be expected, Moira, colleague. Data indicates Xavier's psyche, most fundamental level on a great conflict raging. Prize is his sanity, life itself, perhaps." Oh, sorry. Hard to actually talk the way he speaks. So, all right. But Xavier Warrior likes fights, surrender, refuses to. Battle too long has lasted. Too much of body's resources has drained. Resolved it is not, and soon it is not. Die he will. So very Yoda. So, and so they are in Magneto's old headquarters that we saw on issue 150. I do have a playlist that has covered everything. So I started with Classic X-Men number 1 because it gives great exposition, and so check it out if you'd like. So I covered, like I said, 150 already. So, and Moira says, "We tried everything, every means possible to bring him around, Scott, including a mind probe by another telepath. But that attempt nearly killed us all. Charles' psionic defenses were too strong. He seized control of the lass and used her to destroy himself." And then Cyclops says, "Suicide. Him? Oh, sorry, him? What are you saying, Moira? That there is no hope?" And she says, "There is always hope. Spare me the homilies, Doctor. Under the circumstances, they ring a little hollow." And Kitty says, "This is awful, Logan. I feel so sad." But Scott sounds fierce. Why? And Wolverine says, "He's been through this before, Kitty, with Jean Grey. It's hard thing for a man to face, watching waiting helplessly while someone you care for fights for their life, especially when you feel as deeply as Scotty does and try to hide those feelings. In a way, I guess he and I are a lot alike." And Corsair says, Scott. And Storm says, Corsair, let me be the one to speak with him. And he says, he is my son, Ororo, and my friend. I do not ask this lightly. All right, then, if you think it's best, says Corsair. And so um, Storm now is going toward Cyclops here. And Cyclops says, that's a magnificent sunset, Storm. Did you use your weather powers to arrange it? And Storm says, I'm flattered that you think me capable of such beauty, Cyclops, but alas, I had no part in it. It is entirely nature's handiwork. I must confess that, in some ways, I prefer this isle to our old headquarters back in New York. So remember that the mansion was destroyed, so. And Cyclops says, well, thanks to you, we may be here quite a while. I beg your pardon, says Storm. On my way here, I picked up this paper. The headline speaks for itself. This kind of publicity is something the X-Men can ill afford right now. For pity's sake, woman, we're supposed to be heroes. And Storm says, the situation is indeed regrettable, but it could not be avoided. Of course, here it's the when the X-Men went into the Pentagon to erase their identities, which was, I believe, 3 issues ago. Issue 158. So, like I said, I have a playlist. And Storm continues. Our security was in jeopardy. The threat had to be dealt with quickly, permanently. The need justified the risk, she says. The X-Men secret may be safe, Ororo, says Cyclops, but our rep couldn't be worse. The government has already... was already paranoid about mutants. This fiasco made matters infinitely worse. And Storm says, are you suggesting we should have done nothing? And Cyclops continues, a better way should have been to accomplish the mission. I should have been consulted. And Storm, of course, reminds Cyclops, I am team leader, Scott, not you. And he says, then perhaps it's time I took my old job back. And so she walks away. She goes, if you wish to reclaim that position, Cyclops, all you need to do is ask for it. Very, she's a little pissed here. And Cyclops says, Ororo, wait. And she says, why? Please, go. Oh, sorry, don't go, please. You have something to say, says Storm. And he apologizes. I didn't mean what I just said, at least not the way I said it. The words exploded out of me. I couldn't help myself. Any more than I could help the professor or Jean. So... And Cyclops continues, how can it end like this, Ororo? All his life, Charles sought only to do good. And what has he gotten for his trouble? Smashed legs and now possibly a premature death. It isn't fair. And Storm answers, no, it is not, any more than it was for my parents to be slain when I was young, or for Colossus' sister Liana to have her childhood stolen from her by the demon Belasco, which was last issue, which I have covered. Like I said, I do have a playlist. The one great truth in life, my friend, is its manifest unfairness. I always say, I'm not quite like that. Life is not fair, folks. And Cyclops says, you don't understand. Whatever I am as an X-Men, as a man, is largely due to him. He is as much my father as Corsair. I love him, Ororo, and I can't bear seeing him like this, so... It's Jean. It's the orphanage where I grew up. It's, all over again. I reach out to someone I care. I make myself vulnerable, and wham, they're gone, and I'm alone. Heck of a note, isn't it? Xavier's dying, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And Storm says, Scott, because of who and what we are, we all walk in the shadow of the Reaper. But the same token, we are never alone. The love you bore for Jean and bear for Charles is felt by us for you, and from that love comes strength that will sustain us through any trial. Man, oh man, Claremont just loves the drama, and people loved the drama, and this is why X-Men was the highest selling title during this time. Although the Teen Titans, I believe during this time, had peaked as well, so they were 1 and 2. Um, if he dies, says Scott, we will go on, says Storm. I need you, Ororo. Help me. Foolish man, you had but to ask. So Lilandra here is crying. We had such dreams, beloved. And look at the tear going in there and landing on Xavier. I will not see them turn to dust before their time. My thoughts once reached you across a universe. Hear them now. Fight, my love. Live. If you need my strength, I give it gladly. But fight, Charles, fight. So we're gonna go now back in time, kind of the origin, um, or adding more to the origin of Charles Xavier here. So this would have been 20 years prior to this here. We're in Israel in the city. It says here, city of Haifa, and this guy calls him, and his name is Daniel Shamaran, and an old friend of the professor here. Xavier's coming. He got a message from him, and he happened to be in Cairo, which was during the time that he encountered Storm way back in X Men 117. As I mentioned, that is actually in the playlist, and this is where he first met. Oh my goodness, the Shadow King. So, all right, so we continue here. He says about him and Moira are broken up. That he's sorry and they were happy. And Xavier asks of him what of himself, or what of him. He's a psychiatrist, and his patients are survivors of the Holocaust. He doesn't know Charles is a telepath, but says that he remembers how well he worked on his severe mental cases, and he needs his talents. So, and if you saw the cover, then you sort of know what's gonna happen. So this is Magnus. We all know who Magnus is Magneto, and he is a volunteer. And here is where they first met. So Magneto says that he hears he's been referred to a miracle worker. Now, Professor X says, "Oh, I've been lucky," but he realizes that he can't read Magneto's thought, and he can tell that he's not a telepath, but he has natural psychic defenses as formidable as his, and figures he's a mutant like him, and then sees this tattoo, which of course we all know he was in Auschwitz. So, and he no longer has a family here. And this is the patient that he brought her for, Gabriel Haller. And she's so traumatized she withdrew into catatonic schizophrenia. I don't think schizophrenia and catatonics are two things that are together, but we'll go for it. So, and says she was like this when they arrived here, and asks if he can help her. And so he'll give it a shot here. I love the screen tones being used, and you can see his psychic abilities kind of in there, and he realizes there's a psychic wall, and he's not able to get in. These creatures are, of course, the way that she protects herself here. So they're basically her psychic protectors, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I'm sorry, I'm narrating instead of reading. It's just it, it, it's so wordy to save some time. It's just easier to narrate. And so Xavier says she must already feel his presence. Of course, he makes note that they may be figments of the imagination, but that still they're still deadly. He can't let them kill him, or he'll be the same. And her will is strong, and she's putting up a fight. Eventually, he's able to beat them, and you can see here he breaks the wall here, and Now, of course, she's seeing the horrors of the war, seeing all the victims of the Nazis here, again, using some dual tones in the background here, and how she kind of pictures everything here. And finally, she comes screaming for her mother and father, and Magneto's like, I don't believe this. And so Xavier says, hey, let's put her to bed. I'm sure that this has been very taxing for her. So the doctor says if he cared to explain himself. Charles said no, but that the dam has been broken, but she hasn't recovered quite yet. And Magneto says, well, at least now we can have a start. And so the doctor says they should celebrate and adjourn to his office, which is what we see here. So he wants to know about the golden statue portion of it where she had turned. And Xavier says it was associated with extraordinary pain and fear. And so outside, someone is looking in, and they say here, the Holler Girl conscious. The leader must be informed at once. Our years of patience are at last about to be rewarded. The price we have sought for so long is finally within our grasp. Sig Heel? I don't know how to say that. So here the three of them. It says here over the weeks, Magneto, Xavier, and Gabby are kind of together, going through stuff here. And here you can see Magneto and Xavier talking. It says, Charles, you're an idealistic fool. If mutants exist, humanity will fear them, and out of that fear, try to destroy them. There is only one way to guarantee the survival of Homo Superior, and that is for them to hold the reins of power. So, and of course, here Xavier says Magnus is wrong, or thinks here. Such security cannot be imposed by fear from above. It must grow from understanding. That's very idealistic, but that's not how humans work. So, and so you can see that Gabby and Xavier are kind of on a date here. So we can also see that these two have become very close here, and you see them here kissing each other, and then suddenly here, boom, they're under attack, and so we see these soldiers here, and they want Gabby, of course, and this guy here says she is to be taken alive and unharmed. So and so you can see here the symbol. It is Hydra, of course, and they're speaking German. So, and he wants Gabby to get undercover, but you can see a bullet hits him, but it ricochets. It doesn't go right through, so it just grazes him. Very fortunate indeed. And so here they grab her, and look how they stop struggling Jewess. I don't think that's a word. It's just Jew. Um, it, so they're like, a pity about the orders. We should just hit her. But off they go, and suddenly you see this explosion here, and of course it is Magneto. I love this part. And he says, Charles, you're hurt. He goes, not seriously. I mean, just got hit in the bullet in the head. Not seriously. And he asks, what did you do? And he says, what had to be done. My only regret was I was not able to act sooner. He asks, was it necessary to slaughter them? And of course, it's very ideally, but sometimes, yeah, I don't know. I sort of side with Magneto a little bit because I understand even now there's people that are just so ideally, but there's a lot of jerks out there, so I don't know. Of course, Magneto says they would have done the same thing to us, and he's right. Sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire. And so the doctor says, hey, we have a prisoner, but he won't identify our attackers here. and he claims he doesn't speak English. And Xavier says, "Don't worry, Sergeant," and he's saying, "I speak German," in German, and he's like, "Jewish swine, you'll get nothing from me." And of course, he can get his thoughts here. So he's a squad leader for Hydra. And he's like, "What? How could you have known?" And he says, "I can read minds." So we get to where they're at here. And here, Hydra would take a lot of money. So he goes, "Hey, we found the cave here. The woman's directions were perfect." And so here we have Baron Strucker, a Captain America enemy. I love this here. He's like, this guy's screaming and he goes, "Well, everybody heard you. But because it's good news and because of your youth, I shall overlook your disgraceful lack of discipline this time. Repeat this transgression, however, and I shall not be forgiven." And he's like, "I'm sorry." And then he says, "Never apologize, boy. It is a sign of weakness." So can't win them all. So Strucker says, "We found what thanks to her," and she's like, "I should have died before I told you anything." And Strucker agrees, "But you're weak, Gabrielle, like your mongrel race." So very insulting here. And they say, "Bring her. It is only fitting that she witness our moment of triumph since she made it possible." And so, of course, Xavier's like, "Strucker, that's Baron Strucker, one of the most wanted. The things he did to Gabby, he saw her tortured." And Magneto's like, "Calm yourself. We cannot aid Gabby or bring Strucker to justice if you continue acting like a lovesick schoolboy here." So we get to the cave here. He says that the Fuhrer's gold had been gold reserves were taken out of Germany so that they could bring the Nazi party back, and I guess this is what they were looking for here. So we're in Africa, of course, here, according to what he's saying. So they're gonna wait till they open the vault, or get the gold, because they'll be too busy with the gold, and that'll be their chance. And of course, look at all this gold after they blow it up, and Strucker's like, "Hail Hydra!" So here comes Magneto and Xavier, and she thinks it's a trick. Of course, she's screaming, so this guy sees them, so Strucker says, "Kill him." And they shoot. Magneto uses his power, and they're caught, and Xavier uses his powers on them. I love the screen tone being applied here. Xavier, of course, says, "I don't like to manipulate other people's minds, but I have no choice. I'm also covering Secret Wars," and he does do it to Spider-Man. So, all right. So Xavier forces them to kind of fight each other here. So, and Strucker's like, "Hey," and oh, poor Gabby here. Xavier says she's going back into a catatonic state, and as she withdraws, he may never be able to reach her again. So Magneto says, "Use your powers again on her," and he says, "I dare not probe her. She'll become dependent on my ability. The slightest shock will be capable of shattering her psyche, because she'll believe that I'll be there to put things right again. But I won't be. She must develop psychic resilience to enable her to cope with the everyday and the extraordinary stresses of life. And to do that, she must pull out of this herself. She must want to live. Do you hear me, Gabby? Come back, fight." So, but while they're doing that, here comes Strucker here, and he's wearing his power glove or whatever. I don't know what it's called. So Xavier goes, "Man, his mind is much more powerful. He is not able to be controlled here." So that's the Satan claw, I guess. Here I see here. So, and Magneto, he says, will be the first to fall under his power, but of course Magneto uses his power to crush uh, the weapon and his hand here because he's able to manipulate. So Strugger says, "You may be able to destroy everything, but our ideals, our purpose will live on after us. They will prevail." So it is unfortunate, but it is true. Hate is it is a human emotion, and um, we as a species hate a lot of things. It's an unfortunate, and nowadays, especially with social media, things have gotten too much out of control. That's why my social media is just posting my drawings and stuff like that, retweeting other artists and stuff like that. There should be more art in the world and less hate, but we're human, so. And so Magneto basically says the same thing I says. All things are possible, Nazi. Hate is more popular than love, fear more prevalent than trust. If humanity wishes to follow you to its damnation, so be it. I care nothing for you or them. And when Homo sapiens are no more, Homo superior will reclaim their rightful place as lords of the earth. And so Magneto takes Professor Xavier and Gabriel, and then he takes the gold, and Baron von Strucker's like, "You'll pay for this." And then after he makes the cave collapse here. So we know that he didn't die because of course he comes through in Captain America, but and so here Magneto has all the gold here. And here basically Magneto promises to lead mutant kind into the next stage, and he's taking the gold with him because after all, we need they need, hey, can't do shit without money. So even you can't even take you can't start an empire without money. So here she's finally cured, or she's kind of like was able to snap herself, and that memory allows Xavier to snap out of it. And Storm here, look at everybody smiling here. Professor, you're awake. You're all right, says Storm. I believe I am, Storm. Thanks to all of you, most especially to you, Lilandra. I was in a psychic void where hideous monsters tried to devour me. I kept running deeper into myself to escape them, but I couldn't. Then I heard your voice calling me back, giving me hope, and from that hope, I drew the strength to survive and triumph. Oh, my dear Charles, I did what any other would for the one they loved, says Lilandra. So now it is time for Lilandra. Some time has passed here, and they make mention of Ileana, and the Starjammers have come, and they're gonna have a final meal here. And so we get here. Aren't you coming, Dad? And Corsair says, I respect Lilandra, Scott, but I have no love and less trust for the Shi'ar. Enjoy yourselves, X-Men. I'll see you later. And here's Peter. You look exquisite, Katya. Do I, Peter? You look wonderful, too. And Nightcrawler's like, yeah, almost as good as me. So, and Wolverine is sitting here, and he's like, we're among friends, so why am I on edge? I keep spotting traces of familiar scents, but I can't place them. What's to worry? If Turbo comes, we'll handle it. And Lilandra says, I salute you, X-Men, as warriors and friends. The Shi'ar owe you a debt that can never, and then she stops. And they're like, Lilandra, your majesty, what's the matter? And we already see what's happening here, but Nightcrawler says, she looks precisely as the professor did when he was in a catatonic state, Cyclops. She needs a physician. And Cyclops is like, it happened so suddenly. Is this the seizure a natural event, or was she attacked? We'll call Corsair and transport her to Moira, perhaps the professor. And so Deathbird is here, and she says, she is beyond her Paramore aid, Terrence, as are you. The majestic Shi'ar are no more. Long live the new empress, me. And Cyclops says, not if we can help it. Take her. And Deathbird says, your courage does you credit, Cyclops, but your cause is lost. and so the X-Men attack, but she has a shield here, and the X-Men are vanquished here. And of course, here are the Brute. They look like they have lipstick. Oh, all right. So, um, and Desper says, satisfied, Clan Master Kamahar. You have served the brood well, renegade, and so shall these X-Men. The host forms for the spawn of the blessed ruler, the mother of us all. And next, a journey of 1,000,000 light years begins with an escape. So, Uncanny X-Men 161. Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, and Bob Wyacek. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.